Hello. Okay, I can hear myself. That's good. That's a good start. So we'll start the morning with, first of all, setting the recording. Yeah. So we'll start the morning with making a mandala offering as a token for requesting the teachings, and then Geshe will lead the way with the recitation of refuge and bodhicitta. If you're not familiar with what we're doing, just take it easy. It's going to be all right. Sashi Peki Junshi Meto Ramri Ramlish Nidegem Padi Sangye Shido Mideoa Hirokunamda Shinla Chopara Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyataya Sanji Chodan Tsogi Chonamla Chancho Badu Dani Kyabsuchi Dagi Chushi Gibe Tonangi Drola Benchi Sangi Drobarasho Sanji Chodan Tsogi Chonamla Chancho Badu Dani Kyabsuchi Dagi Chushi Gibe Tonangi Drola Benchi Sangi Drobarasho Sanji Chodan Tsogi Chonamla Chancho Bardu Dani Kyabsuchi Dagi Chushi Gibin Tsonungi Drolan Sanji Drobarasho Kanki Tuzinye Zone Tawa Tamji Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Tenze Pikwadam Kela Chanselo. Good morning everyone. So good morning, everyone, and also good morning to our two Bhutanese guests. Rather than sitting on the floor, if you want to sit on a comfortable cushion, please, you're welcome to come forward. If you're comfortable like that, that's also okay. Yeah.
Dirida manduta jangon lamu chunga ba chimbi lamgi cho namsum sech kyores ranzesha ti thoma delaya ani jitson lama namla chanselo gyabi songrup kungi himbite gas tamba namjing habeno kenden thando namjing jungo de chedar nuji dagi shebar chas nkong tindichik song yores ra.
A great Tibetan master, Jetsun Kapa, Lama Tsongkhapa, composed a text that is called the three principal aspects of the path. And at the beginning of the text, he says, I prostrate to the Venerable Lamas. I will explain to my best ability the essence of all the excellent teachings of the victor, the Buddha, the path praised by the holy heirs of the conquerors, the entry door to those who seek liberation.
There the bena the jungle chunga tawi baina jik sanji gi pi ta lojong gi lojong yong zobala ya jik ani tu chuding jik ra nyamlen na ani kanji ani ti gi tobi yong de chanzang rangula yan chong ding gi ani kibu tamba jik yemba de ani zeme yongja tusiores ra zeta kongi pita rangi tus chujage ti ma sondi ani thoma delaya kiche chechene ani jizalama namla chanselo sen kubachim 토네 아니 구자 나야디 믹스기 토마이 바치키 두스 텔야.
And as we start today's session with quoting from Lama Tsongkhapa's writing in his three principal aspects of the path, and at the beginning of the text, it says, I prostrate or pay homage to the venerable lamas. Well, first of all, Lama Tsongkhapa, in his mind, contained all the qualities that arose from training his mind along the teachings that the Buddha gave. So all those qualities of realizations that he was able to develop were developed and depends upon training his mind. And Lama Tsongkhapa is of the most famous figures that arose within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So when pointing out to us the way of training a mind, to begin with, Lama Tsongkhapa began with paying homage to the great lamas, to the holy lamas.
어디래서 딘자다디 내가 칼체거를 슬라운디 맞다 넘버 산지비 취비지 아니 냠바 잠마임바 오늘 단내기 직취 라렌 땅인지 냠슬랭인지 임바이노 아니 랑라야 랑도 네땡인기 아니 라마 남색 비 라마 직잠마임바 라마 가리여바이네야 또 참말로이래야 아니 그바고야티 디 키체무 슈치 직착도스 아니 제롬 치기 비기 지전 라마 남스 라마 쪼디 다 니마 딱벌이야 마식 땡기연자 삼타 투바 다운디기 라미 쪼디 아니 남스 탑킬로 투지 침버데 템바카딘 첸디 다 임바디 야차 야탐바리스 라 칸스나 다 콩기 람던 아샤규티 라 남스 비기리야 무스베 냠렌친 락터치 마드네 디페 아니 수수 암졸이야 코버 짬기 베나타지 난주 총산 제바나 로지 연구여바다 아니 데니 샴바 상다나 수수레야 통계 연구여바다 데니치 야산 상다나 지금 메지 야부지 계와이나 메탐부지 소이나 랍제 디촌네 라기여바 간지 난줄레야 람디 신지 말로바 낭인기 타르투바디 아니 템버점 된 디레샤스 된장 안주다 메진데 나올라야 디기 송라야 데시 아니 년섬 공송 제토바나 안 수수 메세디 된다 덴바치 용구 여바디 다 자치 자탐바 레샤스 로 자치 자탐바 레샤스 다디
And as we listen to that set of teachings, we're not just getting involved with an academic exercise. We seek to put those teachings into practice, taking up what we need to do and casting aside what we want to avoid. And as we receive those teachings, we do that with a sense of respect and veneration to those who teach us what to do. So this text is something that Geshe recites daily in his spiritual practice, the three principal aspects of the path. So then when he thinks of the way that this text begins in paying homage, developing a sense of respect and veneration to the great masters, to the venerable lamas. We do so in, first of all, becoming mindful of the kindness of the Buddha, the one that was skilled in means and imbued with great compassions. And we develop that sense of respect to those great lamas and to the Buddha, the Bhagavan, because they directly show us what needs to be practiced. And it depends upon that we expand our mind. We take those teachings into practice, in our daily practice, and through that, our life, at least in this life, we seek to make them meaningful. So if we proceed in this way through study, reflection, and meditation on the teachings that the Buddha gave, then Geshe reckons that 100% certainty our life will be made meaningful.
안디리 당이 디슈고야 조지 카인스나 가주 남주다지 라마슬라원디 인지민지기지 안 템버점 된 딜레치 네 셴지 임바도치 소르딩에 빼망부여라서 디 자자자 담바 아니 게지틴디 소루여바나 안디 노르디샤스로 디 노르디샤스 라미기 쪼디 아니 라미기 쪼디 템버점 된디 배는 장군은 중가바 챔비기다 직도 규 용수 조바디 이게 비기다 아 가서다 아 저제디 수 아니 듄 땐을 파운디기 콩뚝서 연면디 도더 규 간다지기 된 송바이나야 콩뚝서디 산지 좀 된들이야 콩뚝 난거도스 인자 아니 지준 라마 피기 쪼디 산지 좀 된디 문진 치기가 버디 베시우레스라
Now, Geshe is mentioning this point because as we begin this text with, first of all, paying homage to the Venerable Lamas, in our mind, it might seem to be that they're different to the Buddha, the Bhagavan, as if we have the Buddha on one side and then the Lamas on the other side. And this is not the case. If we think about it like that, then that's not the right way to think about it, because we regard the Buddha, the Bhagavan, also as a Lama. And this is also what Lama Tsongkhapa pointed out. And Lama Tsongkhapa was a master that was erudite, was had complete knowledge of the sutra system and the tantric system in its entirety. And that system goes back to the Buddha, the Bhagavan. And therefore, when we pay homage to the Lamas, it's not that we just pay homage to those who are different to the Buddha. Essentially, since they teach us what came from the Buddha, we also pay homage to the Buddha.
데리딘자 간지 라마 비기 라미넨 저 야부치 공인지 바이나 아니 라마당 비기 산지 좀 된들이야 아니 케바존이 매바치 따투 고야치 용고도 아스라 데 매바이나 데니 라미넨 저기 냠넨디 에 야부차고 말스 간지 된다 덴바지 차고 말스라.
And if in our personal practice, we also practice what is called a guru yoga, the type of attitude that we develop needs to be such that we see the Lamas as being inseparable in nature from the Buddha. This is the type of attitude that we develop if we practice guru yoga. And if we do take up such practices without regarding the Lamas as being inseparable in nature from the Buddha, then our practice is actually not done in a correct way, which means that we're not going to be able to extract the great meaning out of this practice.
레다 간스 간스 라마 템비기 고든 쪼디 산지 질럽 등 간줄에 주역체. 라 산지 송샤에 등 간주스니 아니 신약 체도 라마 땡거를 모두 안 델리 로스치 산지 좀 델리 로스치 이게 랍샤지 간주 라야 체도 라마 땡거요 말에 산지 질럽 로스치 질럽 라야 체도 간주 라마 땡거요 말아서 진짜 디 심비토니로 아니 로고야 땡게 다 삼주로지 인스로.
So I guess I just wanted to point out this point, because if we do take up such practices of Guru Yoga and we still do them in order to receive the blessings of the Buddha, that's a way for us to engage the blessings of the Buddha, and yet we do not develop the mental attitude which sees those lamas, those gurus, as being inseparable in nature from the Buddha. It would be an obstacle in terms of receiving the blessings of the teachings of the Buddha. So Geshe thought of just pointing it out at the beginning of this session.
어디랬더니 저러면치기다 비기기 자유선으로 군지 님비 텐데다 간투추투치마 아니 송빈 송야치 디 딘리지 송도스 딘자 다 디단 드라와치 도지라 아니 간자 자니마치 차진 종구에 원자 아니 단답하도 소수 비기기 다 자유선으로 군지 님비 텐데 아니 지 자빌라민 되니 간지 산지기 비기 송샤비 쇼래야 아니 잠바치니 강 코바 강 아니 퇴바디 아니 삼남다치니다 다 계란주 셰고리 세소르시 소소 딜리지 코도 인자 삼남다치니 간투주도 아니 오트치야치 딩안주 제고도 소소 간투야티.
So Geshe thought of beginning this session just with mentioning what Lama Tsongkhapa says here in his three principal aspects of the path. Having paid homage to the Venerable Lamas, it says, I will explain to my best ability the essence of these excellent teachings of the Buddha. Then it goes on to the next verse and it makes an exhortation for us to listen with a clear mind, to listen with an open mind to those teachings that he gives, which are summarizing, the essential points of the teachings of the Buddha. So then if we take up this attitude to other teachings that we engage with, other teachings that we listen to, that we study, also open our mind to those teachings, listen to them with a clear heart, Geshe feels that would be instrumental, helpful in terms of not only taking up those teachings, but also putting them into practice.
Teresa dinzata di shuyagi samro di takazing himanganzu dinema unrungush jugsongunanta sombon jugdu chedar chawasech kanji nganzu gom gevi kabdulaya ani chi gom majev gom samlo khandaj tangu gres gom gevi kabdulaya ani chi ani sambadi khandaj te gres ro ta gom gyavni pigi ta chi zamshani da juglaya gom gev savi jelaya ani samlo khandaj tangu se direshes tan jugdu chedar chagorse.
Now, having said that, we're going to go back to the text that we've been looking at during the Sunday morning teaching. So we're looking at a text that is called Mind Trainings Like the Rays of the Sun. And we studied this text just a few weeks ago, and we're still at the very beginning. So looking at where we are, we started a section of contemplation of the preliminary teachings. In contemplating the preliminary teachings, first of all, Nankapel, the author of this text, was drawing from the 7-point mind training text that teaches the way to train a mind and says first trains in the preliminaries. And Nankapel explained in brief the way that we take it on into our meditation practice. So explain what to do as a preliminary part to our meditation practice, then what to do in the action meditation, and the concluding part would be teaching what to do in the conclusion of our meditation session. And this is what we're going to begin with today. So we're still just looking at a general overview of our meditation practice. We're going to begin today with, thirdly, in conclusion, explaining what to do at the end of our meditation session. So it says, thirdly, in conclusion, we should make perfect prayers such as the prayer of good conduct, which is called also the prayer of Samantabhadra, and so forth. That's all.
Di sambu chobi ta papa sambu chobi mulum gyagores laundi so di nganzo ta ji sambu choba ke goreseti ro dingyam di yungu da sambu choba seti kandachires sambu choba khare di nganzo sambu choba kandach ke gores ro di nganzo ji tolong cheba na be yabudos ro.
So it's a good point to make when Nankapal says here, thirdly, in conclusion, we should make perfect prayers such as the prayer of good conduct. Also called, it has different names in Tibetan. It has, sorry, in English, it is called the prayer of Samantabhadra. It is also called the king of prayer. But to be more literal, it is called the prayer of good conduct. So what is the meaning of a good conduct? One may wonder. Is it all right? Sorry? Closer to my mouth. Okay. Sometimes it feels like I have a caterpillar walking on my face. But...
Tirda zambu chobas laundi nganzu zambu chobatilaya mi tilaya chobatilaya yongsa damazuna gosum roji yungu dasira lu nga yiksum chobasedi the jaji yadama yoros tinza lu nga sum chobag tone ani chobag tone dinida dedu ginamsha tiya lu nga yiksum chobe tone yungu yoba didi chagdasira.
So when Namkapa advises us to do this prayer of good conduct to the end of the meditation session, is explaining how to engage in physical, verbal, and mental positive conduct, positive behavior for either the happiness that we seek or the suffering that we do not seek, they arise from actions of body, speech, and mind. So here, Namkapel, in explaining a prayer of good conduct, is exhorting us, encouraging us to develop a good conduct of body, speech, and mind that will contribute to a greater degree of happiness and well-being.
제 간주 릉아 기 저버 아니 저버 상불을 때니 레비 차용돼야 릉아 기 저버 아니 밀레버다 마르블 때니 아니 욕다 용돼야 디 야치 자다 말어 진짜 간자 잠블리 나로라야 지 아니 지 이아랍 삼비 저베 만다니 아니 간 잠블리 나로 강가 테디기 여바디 야치 야레스 비치 소지가 나바이 나로이 바이나 간주 산주 그 만다니 아니 묘다 용디기여바 안직 사장지긴 바이나야 산주 그 만다니 만신 바 용디기여바 디 갸치 갸담바레스 디저 산주 그 만다나 아니 피기게 가서 다지 남비 쇼는 시비 아니 레균데기 남샤데야 통구문도스 라 게디 판랑기 남샤 제조데다 통구문도스 산주 그 만다나
So in our actions of body, speech, and mind, we seek to develop positive behavior, positive conduct, and to refrain from negative actions, which are the source of difficulties and problems, unsolved difficulties and problems that we experience. Not only in the world, we can see how the problems that we experience as human beings in the world, in society, are by and large attributed to behavior or to conduct which is not positive. But also when we look at the problems that we experience in our personal relationship with a partner or those who are close to us, they are also attributed to not behaving or conducting ourselves in a positive way. And not behaving in a positive way, not having good behavior or good conduct, means that we behave in a way that does not accord with the basic guidelines of karma.
그래서 딘자다 삼비초바디 가르에세 페나 류 삼비초바디 가르 피길이야지 아니 게모게야디 지 남규 야부때야 잠기 책을에서나 디큐네레면도스라 주디 따진난주나로야 주디 꼴롱라 시어레스 꼴롱 기침부 자기연자 아주 로종 냠는 참을로 안직 샘 교화당다 토를 시고에 주디 아니 꼴롱 비기 샘 상부지 용에 쳐도 아니 로종 냠는 디기 송거도스 된자 꼴롱디 꼴롱디 장마치 페나타 가부 간주 로종 될 되바이나 꼴롱 디지 아니 소수 찍부 쳐도 마인바 안직 심전 탐지래야지 아니 팬디드 팬나 냠비 콜론 딘리지 토네 아니 치 류 남규 가르템바이나 디 아니 류 산조다 아니 나기 남바 가르템바이나 디 아니 산조 차그레 마도 디코 게무게마게다 식님부 요마요 토네 장행 개바디 싸우니는 조금도스라.
So then you might wonder, what is the meaning of behaving in a positive way? A positive or a good conduct? Does it mean that we just keep smiling at others, that we show kind of a nice or physical physical expression that is nice to others? Does this mean that we have a positive conduct? Well, it's not mainly about that. The main meaning of having a positive or a good conduct is, first of all, to have a positive motivation. That's the most important thing, to have a positive motivation in whatever we do, to be kind-hearted. And with this pure motivation, as we take up this practice of training our mind, our orientation is such that we are not just concerned about ourselves, but in our hopes and expectations, we wish others, everyone, to be happy, to experience benefit and bliss. So that whatever we do with this motivation, which is not just interested in our own welfare, but is considering the welfare of others, wishing others happiness and bliss, whatever we do becomes positive. So it's not that we just have to speak positively or nicely to others, or we'd have to kind of gaze at others with a smile on the face. It's not mainly about that. It's mainly about the motivation that we bring into our actions, which should be seeking not just our own benefit, but also the benefit of others.
자지 아니 셈바드 독자지 케제 란게 셴뱀고 소르지 아나 지피 랜섬 소르 차도 소르지 셈바드 딘디지 케제니 안간주 카르무 카르템 바이네 베나 ngalaya 카르템 바이네 디 아니 게왈 드야 디치 상불 드야 디 베카보레샤스라 디난싱길 지 르 남규 카르템 바이네야 콜론 쪼바지 케제니 아니 체구 카르켐 바이네야 남규 카르템 바이네야 디 산줄 드구문다스 산줄 드구문다스 라
We might have a negative motivation in seeking our own victory, even if it comes at the expense of others, to defeat others. We might be jealous of others or have a sense of competitiveness with others. And yet, in our physical behavior, we might pretend to be doing something. But still, if we might pretend to be doing something positive, but still with a negative motivation that is seeking our own victory at the expense of others, with jealousy, competitive, and so forth. It doesn't matter how we present ourselves to others. Our behavior is still regarded as a negative or non-virtuous behavior. So thinking of the way that we present ourselves to others, the way that we act physically, or the way that we speak to others, the most important thing that determines the type of actions that we take is our motivation. Positive motivation brings about positive action. If our motivation is negative, it's not kind-hearted, whatever we do also will become negative.
제 페낭안주 베베비기 직 셰땅야기 시직도서 무마도에나 망치아 비기 아직 라마 계신 담바 딘디 안 제제 페망부여레스 시직로 페는 딘디여다 제가 샘긴 장니 마네 장발레 샘잔친 로촌 레나가스 샘방엠바지 켄 제가 마네 장 데발레 샘 상부지 켄 아니 룰라나 디야가 요레스란도
In Tibetan singing, in Tibetan lyrics, quite often you find references to the teachings, to the great lamas and so forth. One of the lines that Geshe quoted from a song that is sung in Tibetan, saying that you might recite a mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, with an evil motivation. But better than that, if you have a positive motivation and just sing, it would be much better than reciting prayers or reciting mantras with an evil motivation.
딘자 간지 아니 가을 때는야 아니 꿀라야 랄리 데바디 세우슈저레스 딘자 디나로야 삼부집에 물론라 소보 물론 넘버 답에 답고레스 다디 아니 쪼디 물론 다야다 샘그톤 다디 surgi세 디죽들야 디 surgi 닌센 투툭도 냠스 램버 차워세디 닌센 투툭도다 간지 냠스 레야디 리 가진 희망을 지 쉬어다 지단 지진 캔 먼저 고얘기리 냠슬래야디 가립마 아니 매버 소고도 가르슬랭고도 주 셈바 상부디 아니 콤벨타 아니 마르그 삼로디 아니 매버 소야디 간지 닌센 투투디 삼로 디톨 땅고도 소야 디레샤스로.
So with that in mind, when we look again at what Namkapal says here in this text, he says, thirdly, in conclusion of our meditation session, we should make perfect prayers, such as a prayer of good conduct and so forth. We should practice in this way 3 times during the day and 3 times during the night, in the sense that here Namkapal explains the way that we develop our spiritual practice as a constant spiritual practice that is done on a daily basis, a few meditation sessions a day. And the essence of all this practice is developing a kind-hearted motivation and putting aside or eliminating a negative type of behavior, a crude behavior. That is the essence of our practice.
Derda dan tunzum pigi daji tunzum namsuni wambi godom batans 시즌도 줘봐. 세기 처리를 잡아. 미냐와 nen줄로 준시. 냐위스 지들 잡아남. 신내다 항동기 또버 쳐버지 기위 귤 파버 통미기 솜비 대들 차오스.
And it concludes the general explanation of how we should construct our meditation practice in saying the following. During meditation sessions, the senses should be controlled. Mental alertness and introspection maintained and a balanced diet observed. Efforts should be made to become an unsleeping yogi, and you should know how to use the period of sleep to develop calm abiding and special insight as taught by the exalted Asanga.
Terda ombu godom slaun dichida lunga yisumgi ombu sunguyoras. The two di lu ombu ani ombunga ra ombunga la soba. Di taji ani godom slaun dige ta di chi ta ombunga la tembi ani chi chakdam monsum yongya gi ani godi kago dos kazutu jige an chi chakdam monsum nganzu semla ya shuksa da masuna godi ani tsu ombunga ti chago da di kago dos edge ro di ka tu na ombi godom bares.
So first off, Nankapa says during meditation sessions, the senses should be controlled, in the sense that we have 5 sense consciousnesses, the eye consciousness and so forth. So he says that they should be controlled in a sense that we first of all recognize that anger, attachment, and so forth arise in depends upon the input that we get through our sense consciousnesses. So here, the first instruction that we get is to make sure that the sense consciousnesses are controlled so that those afflictions will not take over as we perform a meditation session.
Terda kanji ani ra pena semla ya ani chi chakdan chori gi samlo ji thone ani chi mig ta dan sunje ni chene matang wa ta de chi yoros ra ani chi keje ji nyen ya ko mugu ya din mambu shu chi ani nyenshi che de la so ba di ani semla ya chakdan ki ya teni oda dil so ba di dom go dos kanji ani nyon tang go dos edge.
The instruction that is given here has to do with reducing our afflictive states of mind, anger, and so forth. So suppose that, for example, our mind is stirred up by anger. When it is stirred up by anger, whatever we gaze upon is depicted in our mind in a negative sense. You know, this sense of anger lingers or comes into whatever we do. Also, if we attune to what we hear with our auditory consciousness, also it gives the mind a lot of opportunities to engage with anger, attachment, and so forth. So here at the meditation session, during the meditation session, the instruction that is given is to make sure, first of all, that those sense faculties are controlled.
Tashijan job said the kitchen which chawers nganzu namgu ani mishiba tonju gos ra nelu mashiba ina ani chawa nongtuk shoya ta nyanga peyanza ani mishiba tonju gos ondi shi pigi ani lengi khari imba ina ya janchi tambo janchi ani shimba ina ani pigi chawa khari china ya manor ra givi chawa china manor and sen digi chawachena ya ko pendo ranjin igale pendo yoba chetuya o dindri sungu doza kanji shijen du choba sadi sochik sungu dos.
So during meditation sessions, the senses should be controlled, and you should also sustain mental alertness and introspection. So altogether with mental alertness, what we want to do is to make sure that we behave knowingly, that we take actions knowingly, which is the meaning of mental alertness. in that when we look at the gateways for downfalls, for unwholesome behavior, the first gateway for a downfall, for unwholesome behavior, is unknowingness. Because of not knowing, because of not understanding, we get involved with many different types of mistaken actions. There's mistaken actions which are detrimental to ourselves and others. So to begin with, in order to prevent that from happening, we wanted to behave in a way, we want to behave knowingly, to know what we are doing, and therefore we should sustain mental alertness.
비다 시즌의 쪽은 다 신고한다 장고로 왔어. 장고나 아니 리바 피기지 아니 샘 세우지다 안 디메나 장투고 말어 샘 녀데알 소바 지니 토데알 소바 아니 샘 샹도 양데알 소바 간지 샘 마사바지 차바이나 아니 비 장신내려야 샘때 투메완사 안 디체도 아니 세기 처리 wasat manzu sem yoto chaya ni toyal soba manshudi ani se sathawi wanki yungu yanza ani se sathaw mayimba se chori bachawa dia ani lobjong chela ya pendo yore sonde din sares ro.
So you should sustain mental alertness and introspection and a balanced diet, to observe a balanced diet in a sense that here when we develop the wish to apply our mind to meditation, to train it properly, we can see how our diet influences our state of mind, and that if our diet is not balanced, the mind either tends to get drowsy or sluggish, or sometimes it goes out of control, it becomes quite edgy. We can see the connection between our diet and also our state of mind. So in order to make sure that our meditation practice becomes effective, so that the mind becomes more powerful, we should also look at our diet to make sure that we observe a balanced diet.
kala saya mangdana ani kanga mangbuchi yungu asra kala sayu kabdala da ko ji pigila ya ani da kala la ya chakshin soruchiki ani kala shu sashodroyachi se tsavijila ya ani suku jigo tsawo ani samba nyobto ani desun guba ina ani kale kaya nguna jayala soba tenta ta jiyora da ji subu pigige ani gyagba chayala soba kanji se riba ji ma chomba ina ani kola ya mugu ya ji ma do di pendo tsawani ni mebachi disongu dos di ngone re dos ra.
If you tend to overeat, you experience difficulties in your meditation, in that, first of all, through attachment and clinging on to food, we tend to eat too much, so that, first of all, the body becomes heavy. There is a sense of heaviness that creeps into the body. Our mind becomes sluggish. We find it difficult to do different things, and we start to sweat. We gain weight and so forth. All sorts of difficulties are experienced because of a diet that is not balanced. So without a balanced diet, we'll get no benefit from our meditation practice.
다 미냐와는 줄로 준시 냐위스 제대로 잡아놓은 신내들 항동 또바 잡아지 주지 바보 도매기 송바세 다 들이 당원이 비 다지 냠네 아니 난줄로 중이지 바나 안 뒤즈 탐진 치고야디 아니 백해심으로 왔으라 안 뒤즈 당안도 지금 메시디 상로 직 담바야나 다 아니 물론 주주든 주제 주다 gas 라운디 아니 상로 직 담나 림보로 직 담바야나 안 뒤즈디 통동 쇼지레도 왔으라 간주 단다바다 로십중갑 주주살이야 만실레다 디냠용ton 로드 람사 조르야지 아니 비기 다와 람사 조르야 돈다 람사 조르야 아니 니마 직슬라운디 다나쇼기 니마샨다 단다 파르다 아니 직 슈슈 젤롱 세케 문도 왔으라 딘디 직 조르간자 안 뒤즈디 아니 담진 치치네 아니 직니 가지고나야 쿠데라 소바다 직 가주스 비길이야 직 남양 땅이라나 아니 땅대 마임바 강 비길이야 소수기 배준치기야 봐 디톨에 뒤즈 땅 제디 아니 뭔가 기어 담아서 또 난가도 왔으니까 난주 디 대신 쳐봐나 아니 콘 넘버 가와 페투겨 봐 난주 텔레 레투겨 지다 연구 여러 왔으라.
And the last thing that the author says here is that efforts should be made to become an unsleeping yogi, and you should know how to use the period of sleep to develop karma body and special insight as taught by the exalted Asanga. So here essentially what the author is referring to is a proper time management, to make sure that we manage our time skillfully rather than indulging in too much sleep and so forth, that we should make sure that we develop skills in managing our time so that we'll make sure that we allocate enough time for our spiritual practice. Particularly taking into consideration how quickly this lifetime goes by, in that we might live for 40, 50, 60, 80, or even 100 years, and it might seem on one hand to be a very long life, but on the other hand, it's actually quite short. If you've reached your 40s or 50s, you can probably know for yourself, you can have a sense of how quickly time passes and your life is exhausted so quickly. It takes 1 month to be consumed so quickly, months and weeks and days to pass so quickly. And when you look at how quickly, for example, the days go by, you wake up in the morning and you might have a certain intention, a certain plan in mind, but so quickly the time passes, and you find out that it's so hard actually to manage your time skillfully to be able to do whatever you are set to do. So here, the instruction that is given is to have a proper and good time management, so that we'll be able to arrive in a spiritual progress at the same destination, the same point that the great masters have reached. So here, Chuki is asking, it says that you should know how to use the period of sleep to develop karma body and special insights. So could Geshe elaborate on that? Dila, Nyawatse jita jawan nam shinetan hakton topa kiewachin kiewa sajdo di kandachinas.
Tadi tirwasra kansana sheni di semli pi migbala ya tsichigdu ne tuyati. Dirwas semli tsichigdu nebi toni chig yula ya jedab juktubayna dine hajangi pi ani lo nibada demba chig langtongsa dindijiris di yungris. Ta di yongya di 인지민지 비기 아니 샘디 단지 쇼바나지 지 가사갈 땅 마자바 비기 유치라야 주고서들이야 아니 comedy 때 들은다스 다디 만주지 아니 에 가서다 니미 뒤마세 샘무니 qabla이나야 안지 샘디 ngangi 비기 유치라야 죽투야기 아니 comedy 때 거도스 디 comedy 디어나 아니 신네들 항동기 또바디 렐하우진 기야치키
저선이 니 고백합스바야인데 셋죽도 미셔버렸어.
니 코위깔이야 니 세비깔이야 comedy 슉 쳔부지어나 니 코위깔이냐 디니 슉 ngangi 용대치 차고레스.
Here the author says, know how to use the period of sleep to develop karma abiding to begin with. So karma abiding is the ability to stay single-pointedly placed upon a particular object. The mind becomes at will, being able to single-pointedly be placed upon an object. And within the state of karma abiding, we develop special insight, which is a powerful analysis, analytical wisdom that is able to investigate an object from within its single-pointed placement of karma abiding. If we're able to develop this special insight based upon calm abiding, we need to make sure that the mind does not become dispersed, that it's not wandering all over the place. To do so, we develop a single pointed placement upon a particular object. So we take up this practice during the day, but not only during the day, also here the author of the text says that if you do it properly, also you will use your time of sleep to make sure that the mind does not become dispersed, even in your sleep. So even in your sleep, you still maintain this single pointed placement.
Ranganzu mani kabdulaya chik mani gonyengu ga shasa de pege chik drachembujina makoya pege ni rang yakbu koran yongyak chet samlo dojuma do pege ani nimu pege ge tundan tunzam laya ani chik samlo tansa yul di tolaya ani nilu di tolaya samdang da tanya pe khaburos pege ni koran yongyak chet ani samtan de jmado timevas ta di mahimba ani gonyengugan shawayna ya ani sem di phigi ani sosu khari ya khomdi chigena di khoran tolaya chik sem shani ani deda nyam di ni yong ya ge tabshi chewayna ni khabdu ina ya dagaran lo khortu ya chik di dindi songu dos ro kewdamazu dindi songu dos.
So often when we go to sleep, we follow this process in which our sleep might not even be affected by noise that is around us. Now, when we practice calm abiding, that single pointed placement, in order to develop familiarity with a mind that can stay single pointedly placed upon an object, we do a few sessions a day and we hone the power, we develop the power of the mind to remain single pointed. And when we go to sleep, it's not that we leave this practice off and then think of something else, as if the sleep process would be very different to what we've done throughout the day. Even when we lie in bed and we put a hand on the pillow, we can still maintain this single pointed placement upon an object so that falling asleep will still be together with that single pointed placement. And if we can develop habituation with doing that, then we can also then maintain that single point in placement even when we're asleep.
Da ni di ngangsoya chedo dojir redos ro ani nganzu ni delaya ka ni sore da ngaran thongzer da ni delaya ka ni sore ni chik di pigilaya chik ni shu makuna ya ani chik ni tona kiwiyor silawa ji pigi ni gi devalaya chaji ani ni makuna ya pigi nyeche ani nyesa pigi sob ani ben nagonsu ni nyede joras tinjigi gyurimbu ni kuya digi ni ya seni mixe gi subo ani chi yangar droya da di shushu kimadas da ni ngone ni lebi kabdula ya ko kama chuchanga chuzo chegaji mado ni makuna ya dine ya se ondigi lamsan chi ani subo da tangbu da chi kam yangbu chaya dinri kebajindo asra.
We can have different types of sleep. In general, we use sleep in order to restore the body, in order to give the body some rest and in order to restore it. But still, there could be different qualities of sleep. You might arrange your sleeping place in a very comfortable way. The mattress will be just in the right level of softness, and you might dim the light, have some darkness around you, and you will allocate a lot of time for sleeping, liking to sleep. And yet, even if you remain in that state for a long time, have a very long sleep, still when you wake up, you don't feel much rested. Or if you go into a good state of sleep, sometimes it's enough for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes for that to feel rejuvenated, to feel that you've rested enough, to feel that you're restored. You wake up and you feel that first of all, your body has rested, but also that your mind is fresh.
다 공예진기 비기 따지 아니 니 슈체몰래야 아니 수부 하장 그 탄체를 써볼까야 아니 니 데스쿠 ni kuya dia ani chi da than che zanga ni ki ku ku du sam sam ma yin ba ni ku ka le ne ya sam ta sa di pigi ge tun den tun zam le ya kari kyang go ne di tola ani sem sha che ne ani lu le ya ni che ba na ani ni ka le ne ya kon tun de ma ani kyang nen dro chi yung go sa res da ni ku de ka le ngo ne sem de pigi ge pigi te ko sa yu je le ya te yo ba na 아니 지 남기 니 세바 난신기 남동 담한데 디코 니 쿠가라야 왕부 만치야부 발anya 된자 융구요 말았어 남동 융구요 말았어 진짜 신내들 항동 기억이 더 규초도 교회 차르세디 딘디톤 숭구요서레스라.
So here when the author speaks about also using your time of sleep for the development of common body and special insight, Geshe reckons that what it means is that don't lose yourself in sleep. Don't just take sleep to occur in an uncontrolled way, but rather than that, make sure that you use sleep as something that you do as part of your spiritual practice. Don't just kind of, so it says that when you feel a bit heavy or when you feel that your mind is sleepy, you can take a rest, you can go to sleep, but as you go to sleep, as you lie down and you go to sleep, continue with sustaining your single point in placement upon the object that you've used during your meditation sessions, so that you use both the waking time and also sleep time as a way of making your mind or extending your mind to the object of your meditation. And as it happens when we go to sleep and we fall asleep, our sense consciousness is going to a dormant state without being subject to anger and attachment and so forth. So if you also maintain that single pointed placement, it will also be helpful in terms of preventing the mind, even while being asleep, from falling prey to anger and attachment. So in this way, you integrate both the wake time and sleep time as into a constant meditation practice. This is probably what the author means here when he speaks about using your sleep time for the development of karma body and special insight.
니기 대발이야 직슈 차대야 저러스 니기 대발에 차대야 되네 지 건다 치우데 아니 쇼깅아와 라마투야 돼야 고 검지 땐투 마도치기 라 검지 땐 바이나 아 니티 규르무치 쿠구여서 말했어 비가 니동 주르기나 주데네 지랑아 투옴바세세들 징드레임바 투옴바델이야 아 투옴바세라 사자디면 텔라 암지도 로게주 섬로치도 보지도라 이나 코 수부 빼 탐부슈도 콜로시나 아니 치네 단다 파르도 니 추즈 중이라 많이 쇼기 추즈 시발이라 추즈 시마도 구매자는 이 거르구메스 니 쿠고문다 추즈 시바다다 니생 추즈 시바 니세드 람사 칠올런조 아니 메도도라도 칠루 자마스 아니 피기티 차운데 쇼저도니 고명갈레가 쳇도 gond도 신 니 추즈 시바도 자니 쿠고메스
But for us, often we are rather attached to the pleasure of just falling asleep or being asleep. Geshe said that it also happens to him. It's so hard to rid yourself of this attachment, that craving to the comfort of sleep. So then we develop such habits of going to bed late and then rising up late. Geshe went to Toowoomba to see a doctor a few years ago. It was maybe 2016 or 17, and the doctor was already in his 80s, and he said that from very young age, maybe from the age of 4 or 5, he developed the habit of sleeping only 4 hours at night. So let's say that he goes to bed at midnight and he wakes up at 4 o'clock. He goes out and does some garden work, and then comes in, prepares tea and breakfast and so forth, and then does whatever he needs to do throughout the day. So he developed that habit for most of his life of sleeping only 4 hours a day. Anyway, apart from that, he also got married 4 times in his life. So that's another another thing to add to the mix.
데레샤
Simultaneously or serially?
이거는 라인다.
Chansa tema shise di remojene yama dunyamla.
되게 대충 와서.
Yeah, Geshe didn't get to ask whether he got married to 4 women at the same time or whether it was serially. He didn't get to ask that. Maybe we should go to Toowoomba again just to get the full story.
Very good question.
That's what you get with curiosity.
대전이 당번이 대들에 당번이 단줄기란신 뭐컴버 제리 로지 저와춘 상원데 뭐컴버 제니 시딩링 공부르주기 로버타원진다 돈로니 이다 녜다 녜와께와다 야위 까메 받은 타고도 라로께다 리시 국번이 세릴하니 강여로니 깨와시기 뭐컴 쩐게부 대다 단절 콤바니는 깨와 도빌레드 베번즈스.
So that brings us to the next point in the preliminary section, which is the contemplation of life as a free and fortunate human being. So this meditation begins with saying the nature of life as free and fortunate human being is freedom from the 8 states without leisures and possession of the 10 beneficial circumstances. The 8 states with no leisure are given in the friendly letter text by Nagarjuna. It says, being born as the one holding wrong views, as an animal, a hungry ghost or a hell being, in a place where Buddha's words does not prevail, as a barbarian in remote regions, stupid and dumb, or as a long-living God, are the 8 states without leisure. Having found the opposite of freedom from them, exert yourself to turn away birth.
데르다도 되는 고물로 되는 세우치 여행자 제단 안저게 안절이야 아니 저와 카르산도 아니 라 어디서 다와게던 조추세디 직추체월이야 아니 자긴 상급도 문도 라 소중원이 자긴 상급도 문도 비기다 유중원이 아니 안절이야 자긴 상급도 문도 디주 신고야 백해심버려도 라 아니 타와서야 되리다 되니 취지에 뒤주여미 아니 취지에 자긴 산도 문도 어디 sometimes 백해심버려샤스 디치디 땅 아주 두스 비기다 진 공불루두기 따지 만절이야 아니 걔는 취지에 뒤준도 문도 자긴 산도 문도 따사기 멜론다 마소나 아니 시리나로 추대원디 안 소주 디나바 대신 아니 자기는 성근도 뒤지 여버지기 말이나 땅안주 최치고야디 뒤를 봐봐도 최고로서.
So we have here a list of freedoms or leisures and endowments. Geshe says it's good to look at the list of features that are explained here in the text and see what is our current situation. Do we have those freedoms and richnesses? Do we have them? Of that list, which one do we have? Which one do we not have? Do we have the time to practice the Dharma? Do we have all those conditions which are favorable conditions for the practice of Dharma? It's really good to look at that list and to assess what is our personal situation.
지 남비 쇼나라야 개치 손대 지라야 아니 딱체기 타니다 타워세디 딱체기 타니다 타워디 난주 따두고 통의 시바이나 개치무 쇼치 아니 지금 메시기 초비 통의 시바이나 아니 대 개치무 쇼치 최고서레스라 아니 베나가주 두스 고물루둘라 소바 아니 직 반덴 다와 타바 자스치무 시발라 아니 조지 반데 안데샬로서도 콘주기다 지 아니 남들나는 지원디게 담보군 총사디 비기 아니다 존디 슈기 메자나라야 총바이나야 타마 아니 메산 델리 텐션이 아니 추 냠네 제대지 모도지 존딘 슈지 토니 추 냠네 나샤와지 요마레스 요마레스라 야 옹퐁 피기 냠타 따지 이다다 돈돌 소바 간지 아니 소윈 튕겐래야 신드는 강아치에서 지키 아니 메산지니 끼바이나 야 디토니 추드마투야 하장 초 아니 베타바이나 얀 디기 토니 아니 지 칠런 주마투와 간지 디기 타니다 타비기 지 의는 네바지 차와이나 아니 취지하기 고급 약수지 딘디지 레도스라
Freedom from the two extremes is so important to maintain in our life, either in terms of the philosophical views that we develop, but also in general, in the way that we live a life. It's important to make sure that we are not subject to extreme states. You can see that, for example, in the life story of Nagarjuna and Chindakiti and Shantideva and Asanga. Looking at many of those great masters of the past, you see that many of them have come from a wealthy background. They came from a wealthy background, but at some point they saw the point in relinquishing or renouncing the wealth that they had before, because that still posed some obstacles, some hindrance for the spiritual progress. But at the same token, you can say that if you come from a background in which you're so dispossessed, or your necessities are so meager, that in itself also acts as a hindrance, could act as a hindrance for your spiritual progress. So rather than having those two extremes, it's good to be free from those extremes, which is a favorable circumstance for the practice of the Dharma.
제송받들 민주디버시 피다 민주디버시디 취메사 율타급 아니 라로 아니 렘바 아니 다치 국벌 소바 두수승고 이리 아니 메마인바기 녀와예다 툰로 안치 다치 가지린 불 소바 라마인라 소바 딘디레야 깨바이나다 아니 치 취치하기 조와디 튕겐디 상가요 말아스 다 디드 타와지 고레스.
So first off, in this section, we have a quotation from a text from Nagarjuna, listing down those 8 states in which we have no freedom. So if we were to born with in one of the states having no freedom, we would have no leisure to practice the Dharma. So those 8 states are divided into 2 sets. One of them is a set in which you're born as a human but still have no freedom, or you're not born as a human being and therefore you have no freedom. So being born as a human being and still having no freedom is if you have wrong views. If you are born at a time or place where the Buddha's teachings do not exist, or when you're born as a barbarian in a remote region, when you're born, here it says stupid and dumb, but an alternative translation is that you're born as mute or deaf, in a sense that some of your faculties are not intact, so that it poses a hindrance for studying and practicing the Dharma. So that's 4 states of not having freedom, even if you were born as a human being. And there are 4 states of not having freedoms in not being born as a human being. So a hungry ghost, a hell being, as an animal, and as a long life God.
단 저것줄 란줄간이 민이 위기 옹부상스 렌타 말로 내라테 신정안의 산지전도 대주스 땜반네데 전신인 저 대다위 단주 캬바진 란두 상유 출삼라 대닌 타두 녜레 장주숨 주비 땡질라 메 디나네 잔리숨 디나네 자 란전 잠불님바 동가 기숑 코니 탈름 주비 땡라 하데 nga des papa pawe kanshi tomnon kowa ye paru sumbe sabintum chanchu peji sabincho ijen nobu le lagbi yongdin gün minamgi sushi dertin jemechi chetans.
As the text says, the 8 states without leisure fall into 2 categories, 4 pertaining to human and 4 to inhuman life. Then the next paragraph speaks of the 10 richnesses. The 10 beneficial circumstances or opportunities are also divided into 2. 5 personal opportunities, which are being born as a human being in a central place, with sound sense organs, not holding wrong views, and having faith in the Buddhist doctrine. Then there's a second set of 5. So the 5 circumstantial opportunities is the appearance of the Buddha and his having given teaching, the prevalence of doctrine and its followers, and the presence of sincere patrons and benefactors. It is important to think over these 10 unique opportunities. The general basis for attaining ultimate definite goodness in birth as a human being, but of such birth amongst the 3 continents, birth as a human being in the southern continent, is praised in all the sutras and tantras as the best working basis for attaining liberation. As stated by the master Ashvaghosha, when you have obtained a human life with the potential to go beyond cyclic existence, the most excellent potential of the awakening mind, more precious than a wish-granting jewel, what wise man would not make it fruitful?
Tereda dinema tat samajdan sama kechimbudo redo ta dinani zu chigdi sanji chöndo techu sonseti ra ani di ta pena nganzu samlo chigtan bayna terini tsibige lo ngabchu tukchu kongle ya chig nganzu ge chöndi ani chig zambling le ya chig kyabgoris labayna ani zambling le ya kandris kyabgori samsung ge samlo chig tende yungros zambling sedi shiuji gyachimbu chig chordejda nganzu chö di chengi di me di kadan yin shiuji chedi ge ta chig zambling le ya kyab sedi da kabure samsung ro chig tanda nganzu samlo chig tambayna and deri ani pigi ta chig pena jawrum chindo jigi ani shugdu tola ya chösungu yobadi zambling mi pe ani chokji tsam gegi ani mi nyayagi tungenji lesaros tanganzulaya.
We had a list that was given here in the text, a list of the 10 richnesses, the 10 opportunities. So of them, the opportunity that entails with the Buddha coming to this world and him having taught the Dhamma is for us something that is really special. Those are the most of this list. These are of the most important features in that when you think of our situation now in comparison with how the world used to be 50 or 60 years ago, Geshe reckons that 50 or 60 years ago, if someone would have made a statement saying that the Buddha Dhamma would be available to everyone around the world, probably it would have been an awkward statement. Someone might say, how would it be possible for the Dhamma to be so available and accessible to people all around the world? After all, it seems that the Dhamma is held and practiced by a small number of people in a small region on this planet. But still, when we look at our situation in the present, we can see how available the teachings of the Buddha are for us. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for example, the holder of the teaching, might be sitting somewhere in the world on his throne and giving teachings, and we can receive those teachings directly wherever we are around the world. So the Buddha has come and the teachings of the Buddha have remained.
Terida kanjin zambling le ya chig sanji chomba do chig zambling le ya korajan sanji chomba di tilab chogores chagores ra.
So the Buddha has come to this world, the Buddha has risen, and you can also say that the Buddha's teachings are available to us wherever we are in the world. So in that sense, it applies to everyone, you could say.
그러다 나를 산지기 취다 nganzu thongna ya zawani ni thar mesa pena chi lomba da chi lomba kugyo den yora dan zamele lomba kugyo pigi da chi ani chi miri koran di pigi chi karsa kyu dendi dos da pena afrika de lomba tila ya tanda chi pebe lama dendi pevchene an koran zu ru chene ani drama to zo pe changma ngakto la kyortngi nam pugu putu pawa amma chama gipe ani drama ngakto la kyortngi adinde dos nganzu delia ani nanchu tarni lama geshi peshi gata masum pemni ani chöson yordene ya nganzu drama ngakto la kyortugyo marasira tona majina dindojiris tona chebana lokashi jinaloya pe yawu chadro dindi.
So the Buddha's teachings have spread in the world to places where you think that even in places where it seems that conditions are meager, that there would be, you'd think that it would be very difficult for the Buddha's teachings to take place in those places, in poor conditions and so forth. Still, you do find such places to in some of those places to engage with the Buddha's teachings. Like, for example, there was a recent footage of a center at Congo that was built in just a small town with families sitting together reciting in Tibetan, local families sitting together and reciting in Tibetan praises to Tara, reciting it all by heart. So parents and children and so forth, all of them reciting praises to Tara by heart. Think about it. Think about ourselves, for example. You know, the Buddha Dhamma has been available to us probably for a longer time with visiting lamas and geshes and so forth. So few other people here that can recite praises to Tara by heart and in Tibetan. Yeah. So can you do it in English? Yeah.
Good.
Probably you're alone in that. Can other people recite? Probably Elsa can.
가시 야우교다 인지달 배 야우교다라 다 간지 당한조 다 인공엔 로직 라마게시 배 만부 레고라스 페고레 아니 하든데 다지 추조 요레 아니 추조 다보 아니 라마 겹주 라마 소르무지나 시슈 델야 가든다 시바 요레 아니 겨르무지나 델 페요레 디 마힘비 지 라지 만부 페요레 당 원에 지는 안주 셈려야 지 아니 chög chenlabro jugchen ngone chög ye tolya chik nyamle kana kanzam yogongin ro chik chagoras mulu shibchungapchu samasongrin ya ani ta cheni dini this chik pigile ya thema tu bana tenis semshuk cha ro chik.
Yeah, but apart from that, actually, we can see how we are making a progress. So quite a few lamas and geshes have visited a place such as this, having given teachings of the Great Lord, Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Zopa Rinpoche also has visited this center and other places here in Australia quite a few times, and we have received and we're still receiving the blessings of the Dhamma, and through that we put it into practice. And there are quite a few people that have done that for 40 and 50 odd years, and the results of that are already showing. Otherwise, it would have been quite grim if after 40 or 50 years of doing it, there would be no results or no signs of progress being evident.
Dindri tawa ni gyunni dagi gegom machena deli loba sheme den deli momba sheme to kade dagi teton mombi chigen geluna chiwrin gyu tugi nyangin chambo dawrin gyu nyame sogi turin du dagi lula sengyuna government에 멤버를 sem동기와 되면서 신도 니가 팬비서 지식다디 니준니 단 시다 대진도 지연이와 대트나 나지 몸바 쳐버시 달은데 데세 메드세 지무다지 미시디 다기 코나 지식이 지송바 따르스.
Also, looking at what Shantideva said in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, it says, so if when I found such leisure as this, I do not attune myself to what is wholesome, there could be no greater deception and no greater folly. And if, having understood this, I still continue to be slothful, when the hour of death arrives, tremendous grief will rear its head. Then if my body ablaze with for a long time in the unbearable flames of hell, inevitably my mind will be tormented by fires of undurable remorse. Having found by chance this beneficial state, so hard to find, if now while able to discriminate, I'm once again led into the hells, then it is as though I were mindless, like one hypnotized by a spell, not even knowing what causes my confusion or what is dwelling inside me. That's all.
Yeah.
Shall we leave the text here for today? All right, so let's do some dedication prayers. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Due to this merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Sever of the Snowland teachings of transmigratory beings who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Server of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you very much. So we are going to have a Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga retreat in next weekends. So we will not have the usual morning session of mind training like the rays of the sun. Instead of that, we'll do a Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. So of course, you're welcome to join us. You're welcome to join us for any session between Friday and Monday. The sessions will also be on Zoom. So for those of you who are at home, you can also join us at any given time in the same, using the same link to the recitation of the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga together with a verse of Miktsema. So that's one thing. Another thing, we are having an AGM this afternoon at 2 o'clock. So we want to make some room for chairs and so forth. So those people are here after the end of the session. If you could help with clearing away the tables and cushions, put them aside so that we can have a happy, easy, and very quick AGM. Medicine Buddha, Medicine Guru, one of those things tonight. Yeah, one Medicine Buddha Puja.